that does stuff that is a nonprofit company.
Yeah, I would think so.
And I would think in this particular industry, you know, there is kind of like a holistic vibe, you know, to like we're healing people, or, you know, you know, to it. So that's why, you know.
I know it's, ask the questions now, it's better we ask them now than not to ask on, you know, later. Let's say that I buy a building on Telegraph, and it's an I-1, whatever it may be, and I open up my business there. All of a sudden, a year later, can they expand that business to anything bigger?
It would depend on the zoning, you know, so setbacks, zoning, but when you're saying, so if you're given, if you're talking about I-1 on Telegraph, are you talking about like a dispensary type, that type of business, or any type of business?
Sales, like a regular store that's selling.
Yeah, regular retail.
Yeah.
So the answer is no. You could expand it bigger as long as the zoning, like if you're built, let's say you had an existing building, you were granted a license by the city to sell. You go in there and you're like, holy smokes, we're like booming here. You know, we need a little bit more inventory space in the back or something. It would be like any normal business. You would have to come to the city with your plans to get a permit to expand the back, and some of those are just approved internally by the building department. You know, that's there. Some of it, if you're trying to expand to the back, and let's say, you know, setback, it would be normal. It would actually be completely normal. Yeah.
Dave, I got one more for you.
Yeah.
I'm looking, okay, say we got growers, okay, and this council decides they're gonna allow 2 growers.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's different Class A grower, Class B, which determines, would we have to say, okay, we're gonna allow 2 Class A growers, or if we just say we're gonna allow 2 growers, who determines how many plants they get to grow? Or what determines how many plants?
Okay, so as part of the application process, they're supposed to be coming to us with, what are you doing? What are our, you know, and some of the plans that I've seen in other municipalities, the plan, you know, they're pretty clear about like, look, we're gonna get a Class C 2000 license. Our goal is, within a couple of years, if all things are good, we're gonna probably apply to the state for a couple of more Class Cs, and we expect our, you know, employee count, you know, of individuals that live in the area to go from 50 to 150, okay? So the business plan would be that. They're coming to us with a plan, and we put in how many plants, all those things. Now, once they get into the building, and they say, let's say it was 500 or 1,500, and we granted that, and they applied for that on a state license, okay? You know, the question about whether or not, let's say they expanded, all right? Let's say they go, hey, we think we can expand, okay? That would change the nature of the business that they're doing, so they would have to come to us to let us know. But as far as, we wouldn't be granting them another grower license, it would be the state granting them another C or anything, as long as they were approved generally to expand in that area. So I think we do have, honestly, I think we do have some limited ability, or our ability is limited.
So if we say we grant 2 grower licenses,
Yeah.
and both of them are Class Cs, which allows them to grow up to 2,000 plants.
Mhm.
You're telling us after we do that, and we're out of the picture, they can apply to the state for more licenses, and even though we granted 2 places to grow 2,000 plants, a couple of years later, the state can dictate that they can grow up to 10, 20,000.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we basically give them a state, well, the state grants the pre-qualification license on what they're going to do. But the chairman, you know, poses a good question here as far as what control do we have after. Now, the license that we've granted is going to be specific to a specific address and is going to be specific to the plan that they've come to us with.
But Dave, shouldn't we just assume that if we give a grower a license that they can eventually get to 10,000, because our ordinance says you can stack?
Yes.
So whether
the
they
answer is
tell
yes.
us they're an A, B, or C, or whatever, if our license already tells you you're allowed to stack,
Mhm.
we should assume every grower license could be anywhere from 1 to 10,000,
that's what
without
I'm
having
saying.
to
We have
come back
limited-
before us.
I think we have a limited ability.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I'm saying, like, if they wanted to expand and go to the state because they've got room, and as long as it complies with our zoning and setbacks, and they can expand the building or whatever it is. So the answer is, I suppose, yes, that 2,000 can turn into a 5,000 or 6,000 or 10,000. Again, it would be subject to the room, the zoning, the normal stuff. I don't think it would be something that would be busting at the seams. So the answer is yes.
The other question, I got one more, I promise this is the last one. A lot of the municipalities that have opted in, and they've done all their stuff, and they did all their homework, and they created it, and they're all being sued. What's gonna prevent us in this language from being sued?
Okay. So most of the lawsuits that are related to whether or not it's a competitive process or competitive bid process, so that's gonna have to go really with administratively, as far as the process set up with accepting applications, going through them, and properly using a scoring system, okay? That's where most of the lawsuits have come with, and some of the law, you know, I mean, that's primarily with respect to this stuff. I mean, most of the litigation out there has been against government regulations, stopping it or trying to stop it and all things, yeah, you know, all of that stuff. As far as litigation from the commercial license perspective, the only ones that I'm really too much aware of are those where it'd be like any, you know, that the bidding process wasn't right, or you're discriminating against me, or there's no reason why we can't do this or we can't do that, things like that. So, and you know, back to your question again, and also back to Councilman Becerra's point, the reason why this multiple state licenses may be stacked at a single location is put there intentionally to kind of like, look, if you've got, again, an X thousand square foot building and it fits there, and you're able to expand your business within the footprint of what's going on, well, then you do it. I mean, yeah, you know,
I would agree, I'm just saying that's what we should expect to happen. I mean,
No
if it
doubt,
was our business,
exactly.
we had the space, we had the size, and there was a demand for our product, I'd
You're
grow
gonna maximize
10,000 instead of 1,000.
Yeah, and that's the reason why,
Yeah.
that is there, yeah. So.
Mr. Chairman? Getting back to the ability to transfer license, what do you see in other communities? We talked a little bit about sort of mirroring maybe what Westland's doing, and I sat through one of their recent Zoom meetings and listened to some of the feedback they're getting from applicants, and, you know, probably what will happen to us, we're gonna say there's this many licenses and there'll be this many applicants, right? So now they gotta read through them all. Is there gonna be a waiting list? I'm thinking, let's just talk about a retailer. We're gonna issue 3, and we get applications for 10. We go through whatever the final version of the application process and scoring system is. We award 3. Do we just abolish the 7? Do we establish a waiting list? Because when I was listening to Tim's questions about a waiting list, could somebody, or about transfers, could somebody bypass somebody else that had already applied but didn't make the top 3? Or, you know, how does a transfer relate to 10 people applying for 3 licenses? Is there a waiting list, I guess, is my actual question. And what are